Welcome to the official YouTube channel for me, the Colin Cowherd Podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button right there so you don't miss any of our football content this postseason. Going to have instant reactions after every big game. Thanks. Let's go into the Mike Tomlin Pittsburgh stuff. So I thought it was interesting. This may have been the moment. Dan Orlovsky at ESPN, as the Steelers just look unprepared and no juice. I mean, the one thing about Tomlin, he was always known as an elite motivator, the best underdog coach in the NFL statistically for a decade. They had no juice, none. It was almost as if they weren't concentrating. Dan Orlovsky had a breakdown of some tape in the first half from the offensive line. It was brutal. It was embarrassing. You like guards pulling into each other. And the O-line this has been my criticism for a lot of defensive coaches, Mike Tomlin, Pete Carroll. You know, McVay and Andy Reid can fix an offensive line in an off season. Andy's done it multiple times. These defensive coaches really struggle with it. And I watch this offensive line. They've drafted it. They've got some good talent. They couldn't create a run game, but it was Baltimore going into a game without Zay Flowers and having a 15 straight runs and still doing it. And I think Pittsburgh's got very conservative owners. They're not big spenders. That's always been the reputation. As you were an Eagle Scout, Steelers always had a reputation. They didn't take as many big swings. It was draft and develop. I think they need innovation. I would say Ben Johnson feels like a good fit here. Do you think they have the cojones to let go of Mike Tomlin?
Well, I don't. And you and I have been talking this about for a year. We said it last year, and it doesn't even feel like they entertained it. So I guess another year they should entertain it. I don't expect them to. But eventually you're going to get to the line of diminishing returns where his value is going to start to go down. Right. And right now, think of the desperate team from the Jets to the Jags to the Bears, his value is pretty high. Like you could trade him for valuable draft picks. You're a couple years away from that not being the case. Like you can't just keep going about this because think about this. Mike Tomlin, like you said, he's a defensive guy and known as just one of the best leaders in the NFL. So even if we remove, if you're Tomlin's defense attorney, like they can't fix the quarterback. Okay. I will remove the offense. Let's just talk defense and effort. Well, you're coming out against your bitter rivalry, and Herb Street now are questioning, have they quit on Mike Tomlin in the first half? Have they quit? So his whole thing was like effort and leading the boys and the troops into battle. Well, that clearly went away. And their defense has been atrocious down the stretch. I mean, guys wide open. It felt like Lamar Jackson. It was like a preseason practice. I mean, it's like, what are we doing? You could have called the game at halftime. You really could. And they went with Russell Wilson. Anytime that you are celebrating that our quarterback room only cost us a couple $1 million, it's probably, and you got rid of the guy that you just drafted 20th overall. I mean, we probably saw this coming. I mean, as it got cold, Colin, Russell really came back to earth. Now, he hit a couple big plays in the second half, but the game was already
That's more Pickens than Russ.
Why wouldn't you, if you're Ben Johnson? And clearly he's still apprehensive about, he's very worried about taking a job that's going to ruin his career. Don't blame him because he sees all these other guys take jobs and it just derails their career. And he's got a great thing going. I think he makes like $5-6 million in Detroit with an offense full of Pro Bowlers. Well, you can trade Mike Tomlin. If you're Pittsburgh, you can take a young coordinator, a young guy like they did with Mike Tomlin, and put him in a position to succeed. And then it just gives you some life. The other problem is maybe bottoming out wouldn't be the worst thing ever. The 49ers this year sucked. They kind of need some high draft picks. Why? Because their roster is really expensive. It's actually a healthy thing the way it played out for them if they get it right. Winning 9-10 games every year and just getting curb stomped in the first round they're making no progress. It's impossible to get a quarterback. It's hard. You got to hope. Cross your fingers, hope you can get a TJ Watt at pick 22. That happens once every 5 years. So your draft is difficult, and you're just seeing a team that they take a lot of flyers for character, and eventually, like Antonio Brown, you get a Hall of Famer. And then you get George Pickens, who it's like,
all right.
Wouldn't want that guy on my team.
I couldn't tell you the last time Chase Claypool. I couldn't tell you the last time they had a receiver room without an attitude. Deontay Johnson. It's what they do. And it's funny because Tomlin doesn't get those guys on defense, but it's almost as if, hey, I'll let the offensive guys worry about the drama. Defensively, he doesn't get a lot of attitude, but the offense,
high-level guys on D.
So it's the lack of urgency at quarterback, the lack of development, offensive line, all that stuff is obvious. But when you see the lack of effort, it's like, Mike, that's kind of your hallmark. That would be like Kyle Shanahan can't run the ball. It's like, well, dude, that's kind of who you are. You know, if the run game stops in San Francisco, then you got real questions. Yeah. I think it's time to make a move. Yeah.
Listen, I would trade him. I 100%. And if I was Mike, I understand. I've said this over and over. Being the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, if you're going to be a coach, is awesome. Like, I don't blame him for not wanting to leave that post. But we saw specifically with Andy Reid. He got a fresh lease on life, and it changed the course of his career because it invigorates you. It lights a fire under you. It kind of puts the chip back on your shoulder. I don't know if you saw Jimmy Johnson throw out a trade for Mike McCarthy, a Pittsburgh guy. To me, if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, I just let Jerry re-sign Mike. The Ben Johnson thing, take a swing. And listen, it might not work out, but the loyalty, commendable. But you get to a point where it's like the loyalty thing feels like it's run out. This is not where you're now kind of an embarrassment because Tomlin's whole thing is the standard is the standard. So the standard is this is back-to-back years, double-digit blowouts by the second tier
Listen
of the
to
AFC
this.
That are in a different universe.
If Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders lands in Cleveland, Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Shedeur Sanders, you will have the fourth best quarterback in the division. That's a death sentence for a coach. And Stefanski with a good college quarterback, a lot of energy, youthful, healthy. Keep your eye on, we just saw what Bo Nix did with an offensive coach. We saw what Sam Darnold did with Kevin O'Connell. I think if you just look down the road, this is not getting better. There is no great quarterback on the horizon for Pittsburgh.
Well, if Joe Burrow's healthy, how often are they going to go 9-8? So if you played this season over again, the Steelers are not the Bengals are in their spot. We saw the last game of the season when they played it. It was 19-7 going into the fourth quarter. Now the thing with Cleveland, let's just assume Cam Ward goes one. I cannot imagine primetime allows his son to go to Cleveland. I can't. He's already kind of hinted that he would go. Archie Manning for Eli. I think he would draw a line in the sand. Though, with Deshaun's career looking over, Shedeur would start immediately on a team that has a bunch of talent. But I have a hard time seeing primetime allowing that one.